promoting a healthy environment. It's the air we breathe. Clean, safe water. Responsible management of our natural resources. We protect and restore for a sustainable future. Environment matters.
I want to make it look beautiful again. It's a beautiful area.
Volunteers gather along the banks of the Kanawha for the annual Great Kanawha River Sweep. Plus,
we want to get to that maximum capacity, and we want to provide that on a sustainable basis, year in and year out.
Huntington area Habitat for Humanity recently celebrated the completion of its 100th house, including a program that helps formerly homeless veterans become homeowners. Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Environment Matters. I'm Greg Adolphson. Teaching environmental stewardship, particularly when it comes to protecting and preserving our most precious resource, water, is the mission of Project WET. The DEP's Jake Glantz has more.
Greg, the WET in Project WET stands for Water Education for Teachers, but the program adds an additional ingredient for students: fun. It may look like recess on the playground, but this is actually a class. And these students from Salt Rock Elementary School are learning about the water cycle.
Okay, so she went from the clouds to the glacier. How would you go from the clouds to a glacier? You guys know what a glacier is? Big mountain of ice. So how would you go from the clouds to a glacier if you're a water molecule?
It's very exciting. It's really neat. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I'm very impressed. It's really fun for them, and it really makes it more concrete for them to understand.
The DEP's Project WET program holds water festivals like these at locations all across the state every spring and fall.
We target 5th graders because we think that's the best grade for them to kind of pick up these concepts, but also young enough to sit down and listen. And Project WET targets 5th graders, but we also include younger kids. Today we have 4th graders here also, and we've also done water festivals with high schoolers, so we can go any direction. We're very flexible with our program.
The Project WET water festivals are often hosted by a local watershed group or municipality with a stormwater permit as part of their education and outreach program.
Schools have been wonderful being able to participate. We've got over 170 students here this year for the water festival. And it's just great seeing so many kids that want to be involved and so many teachers that want the children to be involved. That's important too. So that's really about it. That's the whole crux of the thing, is to be able to get the kids out here, learn something in an environment that is fun and interesting.
We're hoping that this kind of sparks some interest in them, and they look at water a little bit differently, and maybe even down the road we get some scientists out of the bunch and some biologists and environmental studies majors that can come back and stay in West Virginia and kind of help us with some of our water issues that we have.
Like this budding ichthyologist.
The fish.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It was slimy. And somebody touched it and it jumped out of the water.
Or this future meteorologist.
The coolest thing I've seen today was how the fog was made.
Tell me about it.
They had dry ice, and they put hot water in it, and it made like this mist fog kind of stuff, and it was really cool.
It's a wonderful experience because a lot of times we don't have the opportunity to do that in the classroom, so we only have so many resources in our classroom, so this is a great opportunity to get them out and exploring, yeah.
I think it's critically important, and if you talk to any of our watershed groups around the state, they think it's very important to reach out to these children when they're young so they can start observing how water is treated in our state and their impacts that they have directly to the water. So I think after the children leave today, they'll have a new appreciation for it, and maybe if they see trash in the river, they'll go down and pick it up instead of letting it float on down.
The Project WET curriculum was developed in collaboration with teachers, scientists, and resource professionals, and aligns with state and national standards of learning, strongly emphasizing STEM principles. Project WET believes that educators hold the key to empowering people to effect sustainable positive change at the local level for the benefit of all water users. For Environment Matters, I'm Jake Glantz.
Thanks, Jake. For more information on Project WED and to find out how your school can take part, visit our website, dep.wv.gov. You'll find Project WED in the Resources and Education for the Public section under the Waste and Water tab. 8 water infrastructure projects across West Virginia will receive funding through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The projects include new and upgraded wastewater treatment plants to better serve residents, increase efficiency, and reduce pollution. The Clean Water State Revolving Fund provides low-interest loans for the construction of wastewater treatment facilities and other projects vital to protecting and improving water quality in the state's rivers, streams, and lakes. So far, projects in Kanawha, Marshall, Wood, Harrison, Hancock, Jefferson, and Fayette counties have been targeted for funding. A complete list of projects eligible for funding can be found at our website. The DEP continues its efforts in energy reduction with the completion of a project to replace roughly 10,000 fluorescent light fixtures with more energy-efficient LEDs. The project is projected to save the agency and the state around $42,000 a year in energy cost. The new lights have an expected lifespan of nearly 50,000 hours, or about 20 years at 8 hours a day. The DEP purchased the new lamps for $118,000, but received a rebate check for more than $28,000 from AEP, meaning the new bulbs will pay for themselves in a little over 2 years and then continue to save utility cost over the coming decades. The old fluorescent tubes removed from DEP headquarters will be reused as replacements in other state government buildings. The DEP's new Fayetteville field office is also equipped with LED lighting. Drivers of plug-in electric vehicles will be able to charge up their cars at state park lodges across West Virginia by the end of the year. The charging stations are already installed at Blackwater Falls, Kakapen, Canaan Valley, Chief Logan, Hawks Nest, Pipestem, Stonewall Jackson, Twin Falls, and Tiger Lake State Parks, and are free to use whenever you're staying at the lodge or just visiting the park. Charging stations are expected to be installed at North Bend before the end of the year. Park officials say they expect the charging stations will provide an additional incentive for folks to come and visit the West Virginia State Park system. For more than 25 years, volunteers have spent one Saturday every September working to remove tons of trash and debris from along the shoreline of the Kanawha River. It's an annual tradition, and as the DEP's Mike Huff reports, for one volunteer, it's a family affair.
Caitlin Campbell brought a little help with her to Winfield for this year's Great Kanawha River Sweep.
Yeah, they're good. They all wanted to come and help. They were excited about it.
The Campbells often visit the beach area above the Winfield locks and dam to fish. Caitlin says she's surprised by how much trash people often leave behind.
I just wanted to come out and help clean up because we bring the kids down here to go fishing and couldn't believe how disgusting it was, people dumping trash.
But despite all the empty bottles and cans and fast food containers, conditions along the Kanawha have actually improved significantly over the years.
Our numbers are kind of down in terms of how much rubbish we're hauling out of the rivers. But I like to think that's because maybe the problem isn't quite as severe as it was when we first started, 28 years or so ago. I think people are a little more conscientious about how they dispose of their litter and solid waste. And so I think that kind of reflects in the amount of trash we've been pulling out of the rivers. Our volunteer numbers are still quite high, for which I'm very appreciative.
This year, volunteers removed nearly 2 tons of trash from 5 locations along the Kanawha, from Golly Bridge downstream to Winfield, including more than a dozen improperly dumped tires. Carrington says the Make It Shine program is looking to expand the sweep to include more sites in the coming years.
We get such a wide age range of people that want to volunteer. Sometimes picking appropriate sites can be difficult because we want, there to be relatively easy access to the riverbanks, for the elderly and for children. I would love to expand the program, and if anyone is interested in contacting me and recommending a place, I would be glad to consider it. Again, one of the things we have to think about is access and safety for our volunteers. Of course, it's a sad problem, but lately homeless encounters have become a little bit more common. And so I need to consider all of these things when looking at a site to add it to the Great Kanawha River cleanup. But I would be glad to take suggestions and take a look at them, and hopefully we can expand the number of sites we have next year and spread our volunteers out maybe a little bit more to the more troublesome spots, and perhaps increase our numbers in terms of trash and rubbish that we pull out of the river.
And that's what motivates most of these volunteers and what keeps them coming back year after year.
We want to make it cleaner so kids and people can come enjoy it safely without getting cut or hooked on something or worrying about running into all the trash, and want to make it look beautiful again. It's a beautiful area.
In Putnam County, I'm Mike Huff for Environment Matters.
If you have a site you'd like to suggest, or you'd like more information on how you or your group can volunteer for next year's cleanup, contact Terry at the number and the email address that you see on your screen. We hope to see you next September along the Kanawha. It wasn't that many years ago that the Kanawha River was essentially dead, unable to sustain any aquatic life. But the Kanawha, like many other rivers since the passage of the Federal Clean Water Act, is also a river in recovery. Most summer days you'll find the Kanawha River full of people boating, fishing, or just out relaxing and enjoying the water. But that's not always been the case, and it's something that's still in the minds of longtime residents of the Kanawha Valley.
You know, when you get down below Charleston, the canal was really a mess. It actually stinks.
I don't see why they can't clean it up. After all, they have enough brains to figure out how to make those new detergents and those fancy plastics. Why can't they figure out a way to clean up their water instead of dumping all that stuff back into the Kanawha? It's a disgrace.
In his 1962 documentary, Crisis on the Kanawha, filmmaker Stuart Finley detailed the pollution common to the Kanawha River.
This is the ugly end of the Charleston complex. It is a cluster of chemical manufacturing plants along the banks of the Kanawha River in West Virginia. Submerged pipes draw river water into the plants. Intriguing, often secret processes take place as chemicals and synthetics are made. And then comes the great payoff. The used water is turned back into the river with a little extra bonus of contamination for good measure.
I think the biggest problem was summertime, the river, from all the industrial waste and municipal waste that were being discharged into the river. They have an oxygen demand, and basically that waste would pull the oxygen out of the water, and that caused fish kills in the summer. So every summer in the Kanawha back in the late 50s and 60s, there were fish kills in the river. And I recall a story, one of the gentlemen that has since retired, one of his first jobs, he told me, was to go to the river and scoop up the dead fish basically and haul them away so they didn't stink, and that was in the Dunbar area. Another gentleman told me that he was a kid and he grew up here in Charleston, that every summer they would go to the bridge over the Elk River and watch the catfish come up sucking for air.
And here's why. Water samples taken throughout the summer of 1963 showed no dissolved oxygen, zero, in the Kanawha River. Today it's a different story. You'll still find industries along the banks of the Kanawha, but what you won't find is untreated water being pumped back in. That's thanks to the Clean Water Act of 1972 that set into motion a way to clean up the nation's polluted streams and waterways.
It gave us two tools that are very powerful. One is it gave us permitting authority so we could regulate what was coming out of people's discharge pipes. And the other, it gave us an ability to help municipalities fund their wastewater treatment plants. First there was grants given to municipalities to fund treatment, and now it's a loan program. Those two major initiatives, combined with states given the authority to set water quality standards, basically to set goals for their water bodies. So if you have standards, you have something you want, a threshold that you meet that you know will provide for aquatic life, then you've got a basis to set your permit limits on from any facility, whether it's a factory or an industrial plant or a city wastewater treatment discharge.
It's taken a lot of time, money, and hard work, but those efforts are paying off. Scott Mandarola is Deputy Cabinet Secretary and Director of the DEP Division of Water and Waste Management, and an avid angler who has seen the changes in the Kanawha firsthand.
I moved to the state of West Virginia in 1994, and when I first moved here, I was a fisherman, mostly trout at the time. I did a lot of bass fishing too, but mostly in smaller rivers. I talked to a bunch of folks and tried to ask people, do you fish the Kanawha? And at that point in time, although it was becoming much cleaner, most people were discouraged from fishing the Kanawha River. They didn't feel it was very clean. That's changed dramatically since that point in time. Back during the 50s and 60s, some of the outfalls along the Kanawha River, and it would not even be recognizable in comparison to what you're looking at today. The outfalls prior to the Clean Water Act were relatively unregulated. Industry dumped their waste products into the river pretty much, again, unregulated, without too much concern for the river itself. Now, the discharges, as we see some of these along the river now, are completely regulated with NPDES permits that are required to meet water quality standards. And by doing that, the water quality standards are designed to protect the use of the river. And the primary Clean Water Act uses are fishable, swimmable, which means you need to protect all the aquatic species in the river, as well as the capability to use it as a resource for recreational use, swimming, boating, that type of activity.
Within the last few years, the state legislature passed a provision in the water quality standards to allow the first 72 miles of the Kanawha River to be used as a drinking water source again. Before the Clean Water Act and its standards came into play, the first 72 miles of the river weren't fit to use as a drinking water source.
Part of the reason for that was the condition at the river at that time really didn't support the use as a drinking water source because of the discharges and the level of pollution in the river at that time. But that has changed so dramatically that at this point in time, the river both below and above that 72-mile mark is more than sufficient quality to be used as a drinking water source.
There are still problems to be addressed, problems like combined sewer overflows and stormwater runoff, and the lingering effects of toxic pollutants like dioxin, PCBs, and mercury. But the Kanawha today is a model of how regulators, industries, and municipalities can work together to bring about a positive change. The film, Crisis on the Kanawha, was produced for Orsanco, the Ohio River Valley Water Sanitation Commission. Orsanco was formed in 1948 to control and abate water pollution in the Ohio River Basin. Orsanco represents West Virginia and 7 other states that form the Ohio River watershed. Every June, Orsanco organizes the Ohio River Sweep, where volunteers work to remove trash from nearly 3,000 miles of shoreline along the Ohio and its tributaries. And if you're a student in a county that borders the Ohio or one of its major tributaries that participates in the annual River Sweep, you're invited to take part in Orsanco's poster and t-shirt design contest. The contest, sponsored every year by Orsanco, is for students K through 12 to submit a design for a poster promoting the 2018 event and a t-shirt given out to participants. The top prize is $500 for the grand prize winner, with an additional $100 going to the winner's school for art supplies. The winning t-shirt design also gets $500. Individual winners will be selected at each grade level and get a check for $50. To find out more information and to download an entry form, check out their website, orsanco.org. If you've spent any time watching one of the many home improvement TV channels, you've probably heard of the tiny house movement. Well, one local agency is taking that idea in a new direction to help previously homeless veterans. The DEP's Brianna Hickman joins us now with the details.
Greg, Huntington Area Habitat for Humanity has been building a series of small, energy-efficient houses for just over 3 years. They're especially well suited for many of the half-size lots in Huntington where setback restrictions prevent the construction of more traditional homes. The houses are around 600 square feet, about half the size of a traditional Habitat house. They feature a large common space for living, dining, and kitchen, with a separate bedroom suite with an attached bathroom and a walk-in closet. The home also features a small outdoor utility building for additional storage. They're also extremely energy efficient.
With our smaller 600 square foot, as we call it, our version of a tiny house for our Veterans Housing Initiative, those are heated and cooled with a mini split system. It has two heads on it. One is in the dining room, kitchen, living room area. The second one is in the bedroom for that house. They're independently controlled, so you can make one room hotter or cooler than the other. They don't have to be in tandem by any means. You can turn one off and only run one.
The houses are also built to Energy Star standards, meaning low utility costs. It all adds up to an affordable option for veterans getting back on their feet.
Our Veterans Housing Initiative started in September the 11th, 2014. That's when we broke ground on our first two houses. After about a 2-year planning and discussion process with our local VA Medical Center, the Huntington VA Medical Center, through their Community Resource and Referral Center, we are working with their case managers as well as formerly homeless veterans in our community. And as the continuum of housing has gone with the Community Resource and Referral Center, we have homeless veterans in our community who then go to the Community Resource and Referral Center and start receiving services that they're entitled to. Rental assistance, whether it's an apartment or a house. They are evaluated based on their, if there's some sort of mental health, substance abuse issue that needs to be addressed, if there's health-related issues, those kinds of things. Those are all taken care of on the front end of this kind of housing continuum. So we have veterans now who are receiving the benefits that they're entitled to. They're off the streets, housed in secure housing, and the next step in the process is the interest in home ownership. And whenever a veteran expresses that, then that's where the habitat piece of the puzzle comes in. And we're kind of the last step in that process. And whenever a veteran is interested, gone through the Community Resource and Referral Center and has been deemed crisis-free for a 12-month period, which is they're not going to say information referral to get assistance with an electric bill, or they're not going to the food pantry to get some extra food to tide them over through the end of the month, or whatever the case may be. Once they hit that point and have expressed interest in home ownership, then they kind of flip over to our program.
The Veterans Housing Initiative still has the sweat equity requirements just like Habitat's regular house building ministry. The program also requires a down payment. Taxes, insurance, municipal services, and refuse fees are added in escrow. The average monthly payment is around $274.
It's been a real blessing to be able to serve that population. And at the end of the day, the voucher that veteran was using for their house or their apartment in our community, once they come on board with us and then become a home buyer, that voucher goes back to the beginning of the process for another veteran in our community who's homeless to start that same process and could end up the very same way as that previous veteran did.
Greg, the tiny houses are all electric. Heating, cooling, cooking, lighting, hot water, you get the idea. David Michael says the average monthly utility bill for all that is $40. For Environment Matters, I'm Brianna Hickman.
Thanks, Brianna. Huntington Area Habitat for Humanity serves Cabell County, West Virginia, and Lawrence County, Ohio. The organization recently completed and dedicated its 100th house. West Virginia Governor Jim Justice officially kicked off this year's State Employees Combined Campaign Fund, touting a program which benefits all of the 14 United Way organizations across West Virginia. Justice was joined by 6 executive directors of various United Way agencies in West Virginia, several cabinet secretaries, and this year's campaign chairman, Secretary Austin Caperton of the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection.
Now we've got to just do what West Virginians do the very best, and that is show our heart, show our generosity, and step up and do the right thing to help West Virginians, to help our people.
The state campaign raises funds primarily through employee payroll deductions. Secretary Caperton recently met with representatives from nearly 24 other state agencies to explore ways to get more people to donate using payroll deductions.
We're going to have a huge impact. There's 78,000 state employees. If everybody gave $1 a week to the United Way, there would be $3 million that would go into the coffers of the 14 different United Ways spread throughout the state of West Virginia.
State employees have until the middle of December to submit their payroll deduction to the state auditor's office. If you're watching Environment Matters on one of our broadcast partners, you can also catch us anytime on the Environment Matters YouTube channel. You can find us at youtube.com by searching Environment Matters. You can catch up with all the latest videos from the show along with stories from all 6 seasons of Environment Matters. That's more than 350 videos in all, if you're in a mood for binge watching. You can also follow the DEP on Twitter. We're at DEPWV. And for all things DEP, visit our website, dep.wv.gov. You'll find links to all the various programs within DEP, along with news and other useful information. We leave you now along the Highland Scenic Highway in Pocahontas County. On behalf of all of us here at the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
More than 800 people with one mission, promoting a healthy environment. We are the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection.